units, which contributes to the welfare of the society by increasing the awareness of people towards the well-being of others, which helps people to educate themselves about the working environment and knowing the importance of how important sustainable development is for an organization's stakeholders. It also invites speakers from industry who can give us guidance about the CSR rules and regulation and how sustainably to follow them. So, success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines practiced every day. On this note, I am pleased to welcome the guest of the day, Mr. Kunal Gokhale sir, who will guide us and make us aware about the Corporate Social Responsibility Bill of India by giving it a fresh perspective. Sir is an advocate practicing in Pune and has around 11 years of post qualification experience. He is an alumnus of National Law University, Jodhpur, and holds a BSc LLB honors and business laws degree. He is engaged in litigation as well as advisory work. He specializes in corporate commercial matters and handles commercial disputes litigation, cyber commercial litigation, insolvency and debt recovery matters. He also advises startup founders on a variety of legal issues. He has been associated with firms such as LLN Partners, Ernest and Young LLP, Wesh Associates were the advocates in the past. He has also judged moot court competitions and given lectures. With his rich experience and knowledge, he guided these companies in crucial matters, and his advisory is considered one of the best areas because of his ability to connect and making law as a passion. Thank you very much. Now I would like to hand over to Sir for taking the session ahead.
Thank you, Apurva, for the introduction. And thank you, Shilpa ma'am, for giving me this opportunity to talk to the students about, corporate social responsibility, and that too from a lawyer's perspective. And with that, I would basically, just to give you an idea what this session is going to be about, what I thought was that we will, of course, discuss what the CSR bill, which has come out, CSR rules, new rules that came out in 2021. We would be discussing those. Along with that, I thought that, it is not only about what the rules are. CSR is more about, companies giving back to society. So from that perspective, I would also like to discuss with you, what is the exact underlying philosophy behind CSR? Why has the government come up with this bill? And although, the government does, I mean, under the Companies Act, companies are required to engage in CSR activities and, to give back to society. However, there is much more than the companies can do. Instead of just treating it like a compliance, it would be better to understand what the guiding philosophy behind CSR is, so that we ourselves improve, that this activity of giving back, we are actually able to give back to society. It doesn't become just a case of checking the box that, okay, as per companies, I'm a company, as per Companies Act, I'm supposed to, engage in CSR activity. Let me just give this 2% of my net profits to XYZ for this XYZ purpose, and I'm done with this. No, that is not how it should be. The whole philosophy is of giving back to society. The nature of businesses have changed. So from that perspective, CSR has become important. And another important point that I would like to also discuss with you is that, it is not only about charity. So it may also help the company improve its own brand image. In this day and age of, social media, where there is direct interaction with the customers today, if, if any small advertisement that the company comes up with, can have a major backlash on social media against it, right? So your brand value can also be improved through but depending on how you implement your CSR activities. So that is also something I would discuss. And beyond that, there is this new concept of ESG, which is environmental, social, and governance. So this is again a different standard that is being deployed by companies. So I would also discuss that in our presentation today. So with that, I would request to go to the next slide, please. Yeah, so first is the next slide, please. Yeah. So basically, what do we mean by corporate social responsibility? Right now, the whole to basically give you an idea as to what corporate social responsibility and the objective behind it is important to remember that the primary objective is to promote responsible and sustainable business philosophy at a broad level and encourage companies to come up with innovative ideas and robust management systems to address social and environmental concerns of the local area and other needy areas in the country. So basically what has happened is, post liberalization era, or even generally you post your World War II era globally, corporations have become huge mammoth companies. They are playing a much bigger and wider role in society than they would have with on account of technological innovations. Today you have MNCs compared to 20 years ago. What the MNCs would number of MNCs that you have is like very minuscule compared to what you have today. Today you have Google, Facebook, Microsoft having their presence in every country, right? And we are looking at something like Apple, which is basically having something like $1 trillion valuation. So the might of the size of these companies, the economic might of these companies has grown by leaps and bounds, right? Now earlier when you started a company, you one would have just thought that the whole purpose of this business is just so that I can the shareholder giving back value to the shareholders. That is the sole purpose of any business. There is no need to give back to society, no need to care about employee welfare, no need to really care about whether the activities that I'm engaging in are they sustainable, are they complying with human rights violations. So all those points were never really taken into account. Earlier business was only meant to be earning profits and giving it back to the shareholders. So from that perspective, now it is important to understand that given that companies have really grown financially and even in terms of employment, it is now very important to shape their corporate behavior and to ensure that they are just as we should have responsible citizens, we should also have responsible corporate citizens. So it is important that businesses, other than having a profit oriented approach, also have a humane, efficient and dynamic approach. So this is the whole idea behind having the corporate social responsibility, right? Can we go to the next slide, please? Right. And so this is one aspect, that okay, we should have social, I mean, it is like you have socially responsible corporate citizens, right? Now another point is that it should spread to the community level. Like I said, that only the benefit should not only go to shareholders but also go to the community, to the environment. At every level they should be involved in the societal change. Another important point is that what the government could have done, why corporate social responsibility is important. What the government could have done is that whatever charity work the company has to do, or even if they want to say that it is mandatory to make to pay certain donation as in the form of CSR, the government could have just said, okay, just as you pay tax, 2% will be collected from you as CSR and the government will spend it as it deems fits. But that is not the purpose behind CSR. The whole purpose behind CSR is to gain from the expertise of these businesses in conducting societal welfare. It is not as if the government wants that, okay, we are not able to do certain charity work, so we are now passing on the buck to you. That is not the idea behind CSR. Whole purpose of CSR is to ensure that the companies also come up with innovative ideas which will help the nation and the society and the community as a whole. So this is the whole philosophy behind CSR. And why I'm telling you this is because you should not look at it just as another law which is requiring compliance. Ki, oh God, now the government is requiring us to do charity work. No, when you pass out from your institute and get into companies which will be engaged in CSR activity, then don't just look at it as a compliance. Think of it as giving back to society. And probably a company right now, other than having individuals donate for charitable purposes, and the government also doing its bit, a company right now with the kind of financial resources and might that it has, and also human resources, because you also have employees who would be interested in giving back to society. So with that in mind, it is important to look at CSR. Don't just look at it as another law. Think of it as giving back to society, and some like a higher purpose. So with that in mind, we should note that CSR provisions in India are covered by the Companies Act 2013. And it is very important to note that we are the first nation to implement this. In other countries, companies may be doing it, to basically impress their customers or impress their employees, so to probably increase their brand value. So India, in that sense, is the first country to make it mandatory under a law for companies to engage in CSR activities. So another point is that globally we don't have much experience as to how companies react when it is mandatory for them to engage in CSR activity. And we would in that sense be the test case. So from that perspective also, it would be a case where globally in the future, currently CSR was implemented in sometime in 2014. It is still in a nascent stage. We are companies as well as the government is also trying to figure out how to go about its implementation, how to ensure that it is done in an effective, CSR activity is carried out in an effective manner. So in that sense, even globally, probably in other countries will be looking at India to see how this activity, CSR activity, has been done. And probably if we are able to set a good example or be a pioneer in this field, then I think it would really help our image globally as well. So with that, like I said, that 2014, for the first time, we got CSR provisions. Companies were still trying to figure out how to go about it. So a high level committee was set up first time in 2015. They said that it's at a very nascent stage. We need more data to understand how CSR provisions are being, whether they're being accepted by the companies, are they being taken seriously, and how are they being implemented. And based on that, there was another committee which was set up sometime in 2018. And based on the recommendations of these committees, we have the new CSR. So there was an amendment in the act, and there was also a new set of rules, that is the CSR rules 2014 were also amended in 2021. And based on this, basically certain changes have been brought about. They are not very significant in the sense that in principle the whole purpose of CSR would have been first gauging what what your goals are, what activity you want to carry out, how you will carry out the activity, and ensuring that it is implemented. So earlier, companies were not really required to give ensure compliance. So from a compliance perspective, there was not much onus on the companies. So basically you should remember that with these new amendments, how that money is being spent, then in case there is less expenditure, what is to be done, in case there is excess expenditure, can it be set off in the subsequent years. All these things are now brought in by the new amendments. And another point is, you may have heard of something known as ESG, which is, as I mentioned, environmental, social, and governance. Now, this is a little different from CSR, because CSR in that sense is not about improving the processes of the company, right? ESG, you can say, is also to some extent about ensuring that there is employee well-being, ensuring that there is diversity in your workforce, or even when with respect to whom you are supplying to or who are your suppliers, ensuring that they are also honest corporate citizens. So with respect to you should remember that corporate social responsibility under the Indian law as of now is not about improving your own processes, internal processes within the company. It is about giving to community. So even though you may this concept is picking up, some of you may have heard, or you will definitely hear it about it in the future, that ESG is like, you see the word ESG everywhere. But you should remember that corporate social responsibility can be considered to be a part of ESG. It is a subset, while ESG is much wider. So with that, we'll come to what are the regulations under the Companies Act and CSR rules. Sorry. So can we come to the next slide, please? Yeah, the next one. Right. So your different activities under will constitute, CSR activities are defined under Section 135 of the Companies Act, read with Schedule 7. Now, Schedule 7 of the Act lists a variety of activities which will basically pertain to the social aspects or improving the environment, just to give a brief idea. So, you can maybe say that, anything that you consider to be charitable would probably fall under Schedule 7. It is quite a wide list, so I'll not get into that right now. But just to give a basic idea, you can say that all charitable activities would mostly be covered under Schedule 7. Now, the way I have worked out this presentation is that whatever was originally present in the CSR bill, like pre 2021, that I have just put in normal font. And what are the new additions by the CSR rules and post 2021? Those I have put in italics, so that you understand how the government, based on actual experiences, has put more onus, or been able to define CSR better. So now there are certain exclusions which are given. So any activity in your normal course of business will not be considered to be CSR. So just to give an example, suppose you say that I like, suppose we have Apple computers. Now Apple computers says that I sell my MacBooks for maybe 80,000 rupees. Under CSR, I'll sell them at a discount to my customers, and that according to me is, I'm giving a big discount. So that according to me is CSR activity, this discount that I'm giving. But that is not the case. What you are doing is your normal business. You are going to earn profits anyway, and in fact you will be promoting your brand Apple, like by selling your products, increasing your own sales. So from that perspective, if it is a normal business activity, or sometimes companies may say that like we hear that nowadays with the constant changes in technology, so even workers who are in the IT sector need to keep upskilling, right? So if a company says that sorry, so if a company says that I am upskilling my workers, and it's not like they have to keep working for me, they can move out, so that is also a form of social CSR. So again, no, that is not the case. You are doing it for your own business to improve your own profits. So if you can say that if there is any activity which is going to improve my profits, then it would probably not fall under CSR. Other activities are, the whole idea is to improve or give back to society, but in India right now. So that activity, even if you do want to engage in any activity outside India, unfortunately that will be not be covered under CSR activity for the purpose of the act. Now, contribution to political parties, again, not considered to be CSR, because politicians I believe, don't need charity, and that is something I think is also covered under the Companies Act. Like I said, activities which benefit employees are again covered. So upskilling, like I said, is not covered. Now, activities on sponsorship basis deriving marketing benefits. Now tomorrow, you have something like Tata company, which is Tata group of companies, which is sponsoring your IPL. Now if Tata says that IPL is a sort of promoting cricket, because you also have different cricketers from the national stage or domestic stage who are getting brought in. So this is also an activity where I am, by sponsoring the activity, I'm also helping these people. But what really is happening is that by giving money and having the name Tata associated with IPL, you are actually deriving sponsorship benefits, because it is improving your brand directly, and will again help to increase revenue. So that again will not be considered to be CSR. Again, activities were basically for statutory obligations. If you are supposed to do something under law, then don't say that it is CSR, right? So these are just to give you a basic idea as to what are the exclusions which are also there. Not all activities considered CSR. And like I said, that although this is given, if you think about it in spirit, like if you do want to give back to society, then these exclusions are most normal. So it is not as if something different is being said. What was implied has probably now been put expressly in the law. That's the only thing. With that, can we come to the next slide, please? Right now, it is not a case that each and every company is required to engage in CSR activities. Currently, the government has kept a threshold that basically, if there's a company which during the immediately preceding financial year has a net worth of 500 crores or a turnover of 1000 crores or a net profit of 5 crores or more, then in such a case it will be required, it will be hit by the section 135 of the Companies Act, and it will be required to comply with the provisions for CSR activities. So basically, if you see, I have italicized the part during the immediately preceding financial year. This is because earlier it said that if you fulfill any of these conditions in any financial year, you are hit by CSR provisions. So this would mean that if you have a profit-making company in 2020, and basically after that because of COVID it started facing losses, and none of these provisions were met, though because you had pre 2020, because you met these provisions, the language was such that you would still be covered, continued, you would still have to engage in CSR activity. So that the government has now changed to say that no, only in a specific financial year, if you are fulfilling any one of these thresholds, then you should engage in CSR activities. And the exception to this is and basically the first step is setting up a CSR committee. Now the CSR committee is consisting of board of directors, so three directors, out of whom two can be regular directors and one has to be independent director. So minimum three directors are required to be part of the CSR committee. Now, an exception to this is that if the CSR expenditure, which once these provisions hit you and you are required to incur certain CSR expenditure, then in cases where the CSR expenditure is not more than 50 lakhs, then a CSR committee need not be formed, and that function can directly be discharged by the board. So to understand these provisions, it is basically the requirement of the board of directors to ensure that the CSR activity is being done properly. And a CSR committee, to give a background, is only supposed to give recommendations. It is supposed to come up with a policy, or it is supposed to give recommendations, and those recommendations are to be implemented by the board of directors. So from that perspective also, it is actually the board of directors who is actually responsible, and CSR committee, you can say, is more as a guiding factor. Could we go to the next slide, please? Yeah. So, like I said, that what are constitution of the CSR committee, I have already discussed. Now, with that, what are the responsibilities of the CSR committee? Now, first and foremost, it is to formulate and recommend to the board of directors a CSR policy. Then, once you have a policy, now in the policy, you can have different goals. So, for example, in case of Infosys, they will give money to hospitals. They will also give money to schools, and they will also engage in skilling of employees, or skilling of people at a community level. So basically the goals have to be set out. Then after that, the CSR committee can recommend to which goal should you specifically in this particular year give the money to, and also how much should be spent on which activity. And another important point would be to monitor the CSR policy. So CSR policy, once it is made, I'll discuss this later. CSR policy should basically provide what all are the goals. So it is more like a guiding document, you can say, for the company to manage its CSR activity. And another important point which I have italicized is that now the government wants the CSR committee to have an annual action plan. So earlier this requirement was not there. It just said that, okay, you determine your goals and just ensure you implement and spend. But now there is a proper annual action plan that even the CSR committee is required to come up with. And this annual action plan will list the CSR projects, the manner of their execution, how the CSR funds are going to be utilized, and whether actual implement and how the implementation of these activities is to be done, right? And once this is done, once you have laid down the groundwork for how the CSR activity is to be done, then even how monitoring, because see, it is not a case where you say, okay, I'm going to give money to this school, ensure that it is done, and then you leave it to the employees. No, that is not right, because you also have to ensure that that money has actually reached the school. So from that perspective, even a monitoring and reporting mechanism has to be recommended by the CSR committee, and even a need and impact assessment. So basically, whether the goals that I have chosen, or the entity to which I am, the community to which I'm giving money, whether they are actually in need of that help, that is important. And also, how do you determine whether the money that you have given is actually making a difference? That is known as impact assessment. So okay, you say that I am going to give a few crores to XYZ school. But if you find out that the children are not literate, or not even able to read a single word, then you may feel that there is no impact. So that money actually is wasted, right? So initially, this necessity of impact assessment was not there. That has been brought in by the new CSR rules, and that is very important. That you should know that while this money has been spent, it is actually making a difference. Earlier, like I said, that so that is where that is why I talked about the philosophy of CSR. It is not just a check the box that I have given money, now I don't care what happens. I have given money to XYZ school. Whatever happens will happen. I have complied with my requirement under the law. That is not the case. Ensure that that money that is going to those children, the poor children, is actually helping them. And so this impact assessment requirement is actually very important, and is actually a very good one, and actually fits into the philosophy of CSR. Can we come to the next slide, please? Yeah. So now, as we discussed earlier, we discussed what is the role of the corporate CSR committee, right? So that is more like a guiding principle, and they have to put the like come up with a policy, put the mechanism in place for ensuring utilization of funds, implementation, and impact assessment. Now, once this is done, the board of directors has to approve the CSR policy. They have to take the recommendations of the CSR committee into consideration, and also ensure that the CSR activities are undertaken properly. Uh, now, these the two new requirements that have come up after 20 on the account of the 2021 amendments are that they have to ensure that the funds are utilized for the purpose which is approved by the company, and the chief financial officer is required to certify the same. And another important point is that for an ongoing project, the board of directors is to monitor the implementation with respect to approved timelines. So suppose it is not a case that you should engage in CSR activities which are only like for 1 year. That for this year I'm hit by CSR, I will give money to a school, I'm done. No, but sometimes you may feel that, I mean, a company may feel that I would like to maybe set up a school instead of giving money to a school. I would probably, in some area which doesn't have the school, and children have to walk long distances, I would probably prefer to set up a school in that area. So such a school will be considered to be an ongoing project. And for that, again, it is not a case where they say that, okay, we'll set up a school, let's see how it goes. No, you have to set a proper timeline as to how you are going to use the funds, at what stage, at the end of every year, what is the progress you are expecting. And the board of directors will have to monitor that this implementation is being done properly. So earlier, all these requirements were not there. Companies, we can say that government was initially leaving it to the companies to decide what to do. but probably they didn't get a good enough response from the companies, which is why now they had to bring in these rules to ensure that the utilization is also being done properly. Another important point to remember here is that suppose the company feels that it is not in a position to give funds to anyone directly. So suppose you have various NGOs, they decide to give funds to an NGO, right? Now, after this, the responsibility of the company doesn't. Like I said, the whole purpose is to ensure like the company is giving back to society, right? It is a responsible corporate citizen. So that is why now the onus is on the company to ensure that even this NGO is using the funds as per as per what the CSR policy of the company is. So these are very important changes which have been brought about by the amendment. Can we go to the next slide? Yeah. Now, as I said, that it is not necessary that the company itself has to engage in CSR activities. One mode, of course, is if it wants to, it can always do it on its own. However, the government has also given an option Section 8 companies under the Companies Act 2013, which are basically engaged companies which are not non-profit oriented and which engage in such charitable work. Another change that has been brought about is that earlier the CSR provisions required the company to carry out these activities through any registered society or charitable trust. But now what the government has done is that it should be a charitable trust which is registered under the Income Tax Act. Because under the Income Tax Act, you have charitable trusts, income is exempt from taxation. So there is a lot of scrutiny that has happened for that trust. So this is a change which has been brought about. And charitable trust can either be, your own company can set it up, or it can give money to a third party charitable trust which is having a significant track record. So suppose you want to engage in animal welfare, then something, an NGO like WWF is a known entity. So even that giving money to that would be good enough to conduct your CSR activity. However, like I said, it should be important. You should figure out why, for what purpose are you giving that money? Like maybe decide what sort of animal welfare you would like to engage in, and thereafter ensuring that this is actually being done by WWF. It should not be a case where you say that, okay, I have to pay 1 crore, I'm just paying 1 crore to WWF. That should not happen. Ensure that it is for a specific purpose and that implementation is done. And another important point which has come up after the amendments is that these companies can also engage various international organizations. Now international organizations such as UN related organizations, suppose now UNICEF. Now UNICEF has a proven track record, right, in child care, basically, or the welfare of children. So from that perspective, international organizations can be engaged by these companies for designing, monitoring, and evaluation of the CSR projects. Then also help can be taken with respect to the CSR policy, and also for capacity building. That is, see, when any CSR activities to be undertaken, even the employees of the company in some cases may be required to be well aware of these provisions. So from that perspective also, for capacity building, agencies can be brought in. So this is the purpose, that it is not as if only a company should be carrying out the activity. It can be done it can be done through other agencies as well. And this new amendment says that even international organizations should be engaged. So that, I think, is a good initiative which is taken by the government, because this will again definitely help to improve the CSR activity compliance. Can we go to the next slide, please? Right. So this, as I said, I'll just go through this quickly. That CSR policy, it is the statement. This is just a definition, that it is the statement containing the guiding principles for selection, implementation, and monitoring of activities, as well as formulation of the annual action plan. So earlier this was not defined, but now the government has felt, post 2021, government has felt the need to define what a policy is, so that even the company knows that it is not only about selecting what CSR activity you want to engage in, but also the policy should mention how these activities would be like how the funds would be implemented, and how the monitoring of the activities would be undertaken. And for the purpose of transparency, it is required to be displayed on the website of the company. So any CSR policy of any company, you would find it on the website and also in the board of directors report. Can we go to the next slide? Right now, fine. So we've discussed, when is a company required to undertake CSR activity, through whom, who is responsible, what is the role of the CSR committee. But now the question is that what is the money that you are required to spend, right? How much is the CSR expenditure required to be incurred? Now, what the law says that 2% of average net profits of the company during the three immediately preceding financial years is what the CSR expenditure which is required to be incurred by the company. So basically, this is actually quite a significant amount because this is 2% of average net profits, and for the three immediately preceding financial years. And earlier, as I mentioned, that you had this high-level committee which gave certain recommendations to the committee, to the government, post which these amendments were brought in. So this high-level committee had said that for companies where 3 years period is not available, because in the maybe suppose in the second year of incorporation only a company starts making profits, then this 3 year period is not available to them. So let them be. Anyway, they are new companies. But the government has not accepted that recommendation. In fact, it has said that if a company has not completed 3 financial years since incorporation, then whatever financial years are available, right, even in the first year if you make profits, in the second year if you make profits, then consider the net profits of the first year. So this is an important amendment brought in. Even and another point is that probably companies were uh, in showing a lot of expense, like most of the CSR expense would also be attributable to the administrative costs which are incurred by the company for managing the CSR activity. So for this, a cap has been brought by the law where only 5% of the CSR expenditure can be considered as administrative expense, and that additional expense won't be considered as part of CSR expenditure. Another point is that you should expend this money on local area around the area where the company is operating. And basically this again is a point of contention, because the committee had said that the language of the section is that the company shall give precedence to a local area where it is operating. So what would happen is that if in a way Maharashtra, Gujarat, they are actually the industrial belts. So CSR money based on this provision would go to most areas around that belt. But that was not the idea, because you have basically CSR would apply to the whole country. So the country, so states which are not highly industrialized will in fact lag behind even more. So the committee had also suggested that remove this clause. Don't say it shall give precedence. Say it may want to give precedence or even remove it. But the government has not done that yet. But this should be remembered that although the law says local area, but suppose we are like in a way Bombay, Mumbai or Pune, they are highly industrialized areas, right? So probably the communities around this area are also better off as compared to what you would have in a non-industrialized area, or more like a rural economy. So from that perspective, when you are in a managerial role where you have to also look at the CSR aspect, you should keep this in mind. This I think is an important point. Don't go just by the language of the law that local area only as per this. Understand that it is not mandatory, it is more directory. And another point, important aspect that has been brought in by the amendment is that, like I mentioned, the example of a school, that expenditure can now also be incurred for creation of a capital asset. So suppose a school is to be made, then the company can say that, okay, for example, if I have to spend 100 crores in this year, but school building I currently doesn't require 100 crores, that 100 crores will be spent over a span of 3 years, then that is now allowed. Earlier that could have created issues for the company, saying that you had to spend 100 crores, why have 100 crores not been spent? But this the government has taken into consideration, that it should not always be a case that in 1 year everything should be spent. Sometimes companies may want to engage in creation of a capital asset, like a long-term asset, and now government have also taken that into consideration for the CSR activity. Could we go to the next slide, please? Right. Now there are two things. One is that suppose a company was supposed to spend XYZ amount in a particular year, and it was not able to spend. So earlier in the compliance or in the report which the company was supposed to give, all that the company had to do was provide reasons for failure to spend the amount. So what was happening was that companies would feel that, okay, in a particular year, say I was supposed to spend 10 crores, and I was able to spend only 5 crores. Then what would happen is the companies would give a justification as to why they were not able to spend the 5 crores and let it be. As in, that 5, they would treat only 5 crores as expenditure, explain by 5 crores, the remaining 5 crores was not spent, and then on the next year, not carry that amount of 5 crores forward. So, like I said, that somewhere there was a failure, like this was not in keeping with the philosophy of CSR, right? Where you have to should give back to society. So suppose in 1 year you are not able to spend that 5 crore, carry it forward to the next year and add that amount to what will be the CSR expenditure of the next year. So that was not happening, which is why the government has now brought in an amendment where it says that whatever is this unspent amount, you transfer it to a fund which is specified in Schedule 7. That is still required to be done, but should be done by the government. So basically, if you have to spend that 10 crores, then it has to be spent. It is not a case where you give reasons for why you weren't able to spend 5 crores and get it back, pull it back into your profits. That will not be allowed. And also in case of an ongoing project, like I said, like again coming back to the example of a school, if it is an ongoing project, then that amount, then you open a separate CSR bank account, a bank account with a scheduled bank, treat it as a CSR account, and use that amount within 3 years. So basically, once a fund has been earmarked that this is CSR money, then it has to be spent for CSR activities, can't be pulled back. And earlier, there was no penalty. Okay, so in case there was a failure to spend any fully utilize the CSR expenditure, then earlier there was no default, no penalty. But now a penalty has been imposed. This penalty amount will be twice the amount which is required to be spent, or 1 crore, but whichever is lesser. So you can say that there is an upper cap of 1 crore. Probably, like I said, this law is still in a nascent stage, which is why the government has, kept the penalty amounts also lower. I'm sure over a period of time, once this law becomes robust and the government also has better experience with respect to CSR, these penalty provisions will go up, because, like I said, that this is probably a way to ensure that these corporates become responsible citizens as well. And another point is, it is not only the company but also the officer who is in charge of CSR activity, who will be liable to pay a penalty. And in this case, it will either be 1/10 of the unspent amount or 2 lakhs, whichever is less. So here again, there is a cap of 2 lakh rupees. Can we go to the next slide, please? Right. Now, another point is that suppose in the earlier slide we discussed that I have 10 crores, I spend only 5. Now suppose I had 10 crores and some NGO requested me that for our particular activity we require 15 crores in this year. So suppose I was, as per the law, I am supposed to spend only 10 crores, but I ended up spending 15 crores because that was what was the requirement of the NGO. Then earlier the government would not take this additional 5 crores into consideration. But now, thanks to these amendments, what the government says is that, okay, these additional 5 crores that you spend will be considered in the subsequent years. So suppose in the subsequent years, you have to spend another 10 crore as CSR subsequent financial year, you have to spend another 10 crore as 5 CSR expenditure. Consider this 5 crores and then spend only 5 crores more, right? So this is a very good point, because like I said, that otherwise the companies would feel that we are spending excess but we are not getting any benefit out of it, or we are not getting any credit for it. So this is a good law which has been brought about. And also what may happen is that sometimes surplus may also arise out of CSR activities. So here the government has said that such surplus will not be treated as your business profits, and it has to be again spent as per your CSR policy, right? And another important point is that you will not get any credit for this surplus, just as if you, the way for excess spending you would get credit in the subsequent years, for surplus you will not get any credit. So again, like I said, let's see, if you think about it, this is how it should be, right? Like if you think of charity, then any surplus that arises from a charitable activity should not be considered to be profits. You should use it for charitable purposes. So keeping in mind the guiding principles, all these are just putting expressly what was probably implied. Can we go to the next slide? Right. Now, as I said that, reporting is again important. Transparency is important. So the annual report on CSR, which is is to be given along with the board. So these board of directors, they have to come up with a report. Along with that, now they have to give that annual report on CSR. And another important point is that companies which are having CSR expenditure of 10 crore or more will be required to undertake CSR impact assessments. So as I said that you give money to a school, but has that actually made a difference? Is there any impact? That you will have to now gauge. And right now, maybe from a compliance perspective, the government has kept this amount at only 10 crore. But I believe that as time goes by and you have certain systems set in place to ensure impact assessment, this obligation will the threshold limit will go down. And also, CSR committee, who are the members of the CSR committee, what is the CSR policy, what are the CSR projects being undertaken, all those are also required to be displayed on the website. So if you go to the Infosys website, you will have a page called Infosys Foundation, where they will list out who are the committee members, like you have Kiran Mujumdar Shaw from Biocon, Sudha Murthy, they are part of the CSR committee. The CSR policy is mentioned. Only thing I felt was when I went through these, CSR policies of different companies, it appeared that in a way they were just replicating what was given in the law, not really going beyond it. But like I said, that it is a nascent law. Probably over time, they will also come up with better CSR policy. And CSR projects, again, like I said, that in case of Infosys, they've mentioned that they're giving money to schools, they're giving money to hospitals, and all this. Can we go to the next slide, please? Right. Now, with that, I have discussed as to, what are the requirements as per the law. But like I said, that CSR activity need not be limited only to the, requirement of law. It should not be just a check the box activity. So when you are responsible, like suppose when once you graduate from here and you are responsible for any CSR activity, I would suggest that, keep these additional few things in mind, though not legally they will not cause any liability on you, but it would probably be a good practice considering the whole philosophy of CSR. I know I'm repeating the concept of philosophy of CSR, but like I said that it is important to keep the philosophy in mind so that we ensure that the implementation is done properly, right? uh, and it should not be just something like a legal compliance. So with that, as I mentioned earlier, there is this concept of ESG reporting, which I will deal with later. Basically, it is all about ensuring improving your internal practices also, right? So suppose now whatever I discussed, in fact, your CSR expenditure clauses in the Companies Act and the rules specifically said that if you do something for the benefit of your own employees, it will not be considered to be CSR activity, right? But doing something for the welfare of your employees, ensuring that there is diversity in your workforce, trying to ensure that you have more members from the like maybe more female workers, or even members of other genders like a transgender community, or depending on the sexual preferences, they are not being discriminated against. So all those things are also important, right? Because finally that is also about giving back to society, and as that is also in a way a form of corporate social responsibility, not under the law, but from a best practice perspective. Another important point is that don't just and this is also something that was given by the committee, a high level committee which was set up in 2018, that ensure that the company is not just transferring fund. As I mentioned that whatever is the unspent amount, that should be transferred to a fund, government fund, right? Now it is important that should not be a case that you had to spend 10 crores, you spend only 2 and remaining 8, as per law you are just required to transfer it to a government fund, so you've transferred it and you're done with your CSR obligation. But that should not be the case. Like I said, the purpose is to ensure that your expertise, your as in the company's expertise, is also brought in for the benefit of society, right? So from that perspective, it would be better that the funds are not just transferred to any government fund, and that activity is actually taken up by the company. So this was actually a recommendation given by that committee, that don't allow companies to transfer funds to the government. They should actually use it, like ensure its utilization on their own. However, the government, as of now, by this amendment, has not made that change. But I found it to be a very important point, that the company itself should conduct that CSR activity. And like I said, auditing those activities is also important. Okay, the board of directors, as we discussed, is required to undertake ensure that it is undertake monitoring of compliances, or ensuring that the funds are used. But when the same is done by an auditor, it gets more value. It has a different weightage, that you have an independent, finally the board of directors is responsible for the company, but they are also in charge of management. So having a third party who is going to audit whether your CSR activities are being done properly, funds are being used properly, implementation is as per timeline. So such as your financial accounts are audited, right? In the same way, your CSR activities also being audited would definitely help the company. And one last important point, which was also suggested by that committee, was that engage a CSR expert. Now, if you see, the committee of the CSR committee is consisting only of directors, and that too you have one independent director, right? But what is exactly the expertise of these directors in doing CSR work? In fact, if you think about it, the directors so far, I mean, now there is a change in the thinking, but so far for the last 20 years, when they have been managing things, they have only had a profit oriented approach. So to make that transition also will take time, and for that probably having a CSR expert, someone from an NGO who will help you, because like I said, the CSR committee is going to guide the company on how to engage in CSR activity. So having a CSR expert there will also help. So like I said, that these are currently not requirements under the law, but going by and I hope that if I mean, if you feel this is the right way to go about it, when you yourself are going to engage in CSR work, when you have your under employment, then I hope you also keep all these things in mind when engaging in CSR. Can we go to the next slide? Right. Now, just 1 minute. Now, as we discussed that, yeah, can we go to the next slide? The next one, please. Next one. Right. So now we've discussed, as to how a company is required to, engage in charitable work, and also what are the requirements under company law. Now, the thing is that it is not, you won't say that, it is just charity work. You can also use CSR activity work for improving your own brand image. So it is not a case that only it is charity. It can also, if utilized, while I mean, of course, not losing the side that it is predominantly for charity work, you can a company can also use CSR to improve its own branding, right? So suppose tomorrow we have, for example, now you have Infosys, right? Now Infosys is into software. Now tomorrow, if you come to know that Infosys for its offices is not using your regular electricity, it is generating its own electricity using solar panels, right? So there they say that we use green energy, we are generating our own electricity, we are reducing our pollution footprint. Then they also say that we for the underprivileged communities, we are setting up computer centers, not like we are giving them jobs immediately, but we are going to train them in having IT skills, and based on that they can go anywhere they want and take up any job they want. So when you hear this and compare this to, I mean, this is just an example, any other IT company, you may feel that, okay, maybe Infosys is a better company. Infosys is doing something for society. So probably in your head, Infosys is going to have a much better reputation than any other IT company, which is not engaging in this and probably is just profit oriented, right? So that is how CSR could be used to improve the brand image of a company. Now, to do this, there are a few things which can be kept in mind. Now, most important thing would be that link that activity. Now, for when you come to determining what the activity should be, the activity can also be linked to what the company brand is, what its core competencies are, and what its strategy is. So, like I said, that okay, Infosys can always, suppose Infosys has to pay 10 crores for 10 crores as CSR expenditure. Now it may decide that okay, I will give this for animal welfare. It gives it to WWF NGO, right? So that is one option. Otherwise, like I said, that it can come up with clean energy for its buildings. It can come up with training institutes for underprivileged people. So, and the way it will work is Infosys already has an expertise in this, so it can actually, even utilize its employees. Even the employees can be told that, maybe your weekend, one weekend per month, you will have to go and teach at that institute, as an example. So where, your own core competency can also be used for doing that charitable work, then it will definitely, help the company as well. Another important point is that, instead of, like we said, that okay, who is going to decide the activities? It will be the board of directors and the CSR committee, right? But CSR committee again is consisting of directors. So instead of that, try and get insights. Now we are in the age of internet, social media. It is very easy to get feedback. Just as I said that, companies can face a social media backlash. In the same way, it's easy to get a feedback from the companies. So with respect to that, the company can try and get insights from its own customers, its own employees, and also the community members around it, to find out that, which are the issues that actually matter. Do these people know what initiatives are taken? So suppose tomorrow, uh, like I said, that Infosys is setting up solar panels and using them for generating its own electricity, right? Now, it's important that this is also conveyed to these community stakeholders, that is the customers and employees. If they don't know about it, then that brand image is not getting built. So that from that perspective, it is first important to gauge as to whether this is known. And also, what, when you think of Infosys, what is the brand association? What all do you think of? Do you think of Infosys as a charitable organization also? Like, for example, we don't even know about Infosys Foundation in a way. So all those things are important. And other than this, we should also try and gauge what the needs of the community are. So just as you would do an impact assessment later, even prior to engaging in activity, it would be better to understand what the needs are and then fulfill those. So that so suppose, you decide to, a company decides to give money to a well-known organization which is well funded, such as maybe, CRY, which is for child rights, or WWF. Now maybe that NGO may not be in need of that money. So even assessing that community need is important. Another important thing will be, now coming, once the activities are decided, what will be, it is important that the company sets goals, right? Now, these can be long-term goals as well as short-term goals. Long-term goals are probably goals which, will take some time in the future, and immediately may not make a difference. So it is important to have both goals, because when you say that, okay, I was supposed to give meals, suppose I was supposed to give meals to, no, I was supposed to fund education of maybe 1,000 children in low income group schools, right? So those are short-term goals, can be met. Now, if you think of long-term goals, that, improving quality of education in our country, that is a long term goal, nothing specific. So important is that these goals should also be specific, so that you are able to convey to the, stakeholders such as customers, employees, that these were the goals we set and these are the goals we've reached. Because that, again, while it will also help society, it will also definitely help to improve the brand of the company. Can we go to the next slide, please? Right. Now, even implementation. Now, how to go about the implementation, right? It will be important that, it should not just be a case where the CSR, I mean, of course, CSR committee is required to engage, to come up with a policy, but try and engage your employees from the strategy stage to the execution stage. So if, your company gets ideas from the employees, ask them that, okay, we want to give money to a particular school, tell us how much money, how we should implement this strategy, so that, even the employees feel that our company is doing something. And if your employees are happy with you, then it is definitely going to improve their productivity as well. Their attrition rates will go down. So it is not only brand image with respect to your customers, it is also brand image with respect to your employees, where your employees may feel that, okay, if this company gives back to society, it is adopting a humane approach. It is not only about, for this company only, making me work and earning profits is not the only goal. It wants to give back to society, though that creates a positive impression in the minds of your employees as well. Another important point is with respect to implementation. Like I said, that impact assessment. Now, as we saw under the law, impact assessment is a requirement only when the CSR expenditure is more than 10 crores. But that can be done by a company on its own as well, because when you show that, okay, this is what we set out to do and this is what we achieved, that again builds a uh, positive image of the company. And another point is build partnerships with NGOs. So other than taking up work on your own, try and engage NGOs, because like we discussed, NGOs have that expertise, right? That is what they do 24/7, charity work. So try and do that as well. So these are the different ways of ensuring implementation. Now, once implementation is done, how do we look at the results? So like I said, that impact assessment should be done regularly. Another important thing is that, be transparent with your reporting. So it should not be a case where you said that I had to ensure meals for 1,000 children, and if at the end of the year you were able to reach a target of only 750, be transparent with it, because this is also about people knowing that, okay, this is something authentic. So tell why you were not able to reach that goal, but be authentic. Don't just say that, okay, I was supposed to, but what if this creates a bad image? So I'll just say, yeah, I reached my goal. That is not the case. Be very transparent with your reporting. Also, important point is that don't wait for a feedback. Let there be other than impact assessment, let there be continuous feedback. So once you take immediate feedback on a particular activity, you are able to improve it as you go along, right? So these are a few things which a company could implement so as to ensure that their CSR activity, while being done properly, and while being you can say aligned with the CSR philosophy of helping society as a whole, is also helping the company in some way. It is not pure charity. It can be used to improve your brand image. And the, like I said, the most important point is communication of these initiatives, because they will also help to foster enthusiasm, or boost stakeholder engagement and enhance accountability. So basically, like I said, that if Infosys Foundation, like I said, that if Infosys Foundation, again, coming back to the same example, has solar panels to generate electricity, but if we don't know about it, then there is, it doesn't serve. I mean, it doesn't help to improve their own brand image. Of course, it helps the environment, that is there. But like I said, that this is probably a secondary thing, but can also be thought of by the company to improve their brand. So communicating in an effective fashion, like through social media, and also trying to gauge as to whether this has reached. So these are a few things. Like I said, that while sticking to the CSR philosophy, while ensuring compliance with the law, these are a few things which you can help your company do to bring more value to the company and the brand, right? So can we go to the next slide? Right. So as I discussed, that now what will be the benefits? Benefits will be, like, of course, positive impact in the community. Your brand image improves. With respect to customers, there is more loyalty. So suppose, so say for example, we have this crisis in China, where the Muslims in China, the Uyghurs, they are being engaged in forced labor. Right now, there are some companies which may take a stand that, okay, any cotton which comes from this region of China, we are not going to buy it for the purpose of making a cloth. So if I'm not wrong, this brand called H&M had said that any such cotton we will not buy, right? So when you hear about this, you feel that, okay, maybe they are respecting human rights, because it is apparent said being said that apparently those Uyghur community, that community is being forced into labor in, and that is what is basically being projected in the news. So based on this, the H&M brand says that we are not going to source our cotton from this particular community area. And now if you have another brand, well-known brand, which says that, no, we don't care, we that cotton is cheap for us, we have to increase our profits, we are going to buy that cotton, it doesn't matter. then in your mind, I mean, in your mind or any customer's mind, it may make a difference. They may feel that, no, this brand is not socially conscious. Maybe it is better if I purchase products from H&M. So this also helps. This helps increase customer loyalty, better employee morale. Like I said, that when employees are engaged in the execution, like planning process and execution process. Suppose now you are required, and supposed to go and help out in a school. Suppose you're told that go teach in a school once a month, and that is part of a CSR activity, right? So that is going to help the employee morale also, and also going to improve feelings of the employee towards the company. It will help to and also help to attract better level of employees. Attrition will definitely go down. So all these are also benefits of having a good CSR strategy in place. Plan it so that it works to the advantage of the company, while, like I said, putting a disclaimer, ensuring that it sticks to the CSR philosophy. And like I said, probably all this may help you improve your improve the company, improve its revenues as well, right? So I'll just quickly, one last point is there, that of BRR, that is business reporting requirements. That talks of ESG. So can we just go to the next slide? I'll just sum it up in time. Yeah, next slide. Yeah, so these are just a few guidelines. Now, while I have discussed what is there under the Companies Act, the SEBI, that is Security Exchange Board of India, right, which regulates your stock exchanges, they have also come up with certain guidelines. These are only for the top 500 companies on the stock exchanges. So these are actually, like I said, ESG talks about improving their own processes as well. While so CSR forms a part of ESG, I thought that since this is an upcoming topic and you will definitely be hearing about this, I'll just quickly take you through what are the guiding principles of ESG. So one is that businesses should conduct themselves through ethics, transparency, and accountability. So, like I said, that this sourcing cotton from the Uyghur region of China, maybe that will be hit by this. That it is not an ethical practice. In a day of maybe modern slavery, you should not be sourcing cotton from that area. So from that perspective, ethical approach, is the company having an ethical approach? Then businesses should provide goods and services that are safe and contribute to sustainability throughout their lifestyle. So suppose I am a plastic manufacturer. Am I using recycled plastic instead of which is already there in the on this earth basically? Am I using that, or am I getting new plastic manufactured and using that to make plastic products? So when you use recycled plastic, it is definitely going to help sustainability on this planet, right? Then businesses should promote well-being of all employees, and businesses should also respect interests of and be responsive towards all stakeholders, especially those who are disadvantaged, vulnerable, and marginalized. So this last point, so like I said, that well-being of all employees is specifically not considered to be CSR expenditure. It is specifically said that if you incur expenditure for your employees, it will not be CSR expenditure. But as a good company practice, it will be important to ensure that although you're not really hit by these guidelines, keep that in mind, that this will definitely help to improve the company as being considered as a responsible corporate citizen. And this point of helping out the marginalized and vulnerable sections of society is covered under our CSR, that is the law, right? Can we go to the next slide? Right. And again, like I said, the same Uyghur example of sourcing cotton from the China area, that respect human rights. It is basically, if any form of slavery is being involved to manufacture something or to get your supplies, then try and avoid that. Then also businesses should respect, even with respect to environment, like I said, part of CSR, so that is okay. Even ethical practices, such as when you have to when a law is being brought out, then ensure that you're not paying someone off and indulging in corrupt practices to influence that particular law. And also, one important point, last point, is that businesses should engage with and provide value to their customers and consumers in a responsible manner. So this is something like consumer protection, you can say, that ensuring that the quality of your products is not harmful to your customers. So these were the various guidelines, though not mandatory for all companies, but like I said, it would be useful. Next slide. Right. So with that, I come to the end of my presentation. So just to conclude, like I said, that I hope that this has conveyed to you the message of CSR, that it is not only about the law, it is not only about a compliance. Remember, it is about giving back to society and about being a responsible corporate citizen. So when you keep that in mind, and also it is, other than society, it can also help as an ancillary point. It can also help you improve your brand image, and it can also help to improve your morale, right? So even when it comes to from an HR perspective, even if you're working in the HR department of a company, even you do have to play a role. It is not only the finance department which has to engage in CSR activities, which would take the forefront. So these are various points to be kept in mind. And with that, I'd like to come to the end of my presentation. I hope this was useful, and if anyone has any questions, I would be happy to take them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for guiding us briefly about the CSR laws and insightful sessions. So if anyone has questions, please raise your hands. Yes, you can ask your question.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
So my question is that if there is any change in central government in future, then what changes can we expect in this bill after the government change?
Right. So see, I think that even if the government is to change, like I said, that CSR philosophy is about giving back. So I don't think, and anyway, initially when this bill came out, it was considered to be very onerous for corporates. So really speaking, even if the government of the day changes, this philosophy does not change, right? Like I said, that the fact that companies are becoming big players in society, like the number of employees they are engaging with, number of customers they are engaging with, all that will change. So I believe that it is my view that even if a government does come, I don't think it will make much of a difference with respect to the CSR policy. And like I said, that if we keep the guiding principles in mind, then CSR is CSR. What has come up, like even the amendments which have been brought out, are just expressly stating what the CSR policy is. I
Thank
hope
you,
that
sir.
answers the question. Yeah. Okay.
Shruti, you can ask your question.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
My question is, do you think despite of creation of employment paying a corporate taxes, exports, etc., was there a extra burden on the companies of CSR?
Right. So, see, like I said, that companies may feel this, but if you stop, when would you feel this? When would you feel that, out of my profits, 2% I have to pay, right? Because we look at companies as profit oriented businesses. We have never thought of companies as helping out in society, right? And where does this profit go? It goes back to the shareholders, right? So the whole idea is that you are getting so much. And see, is it whom is the company relying on for CSR work, right? I mean, how is the company making profits? It is using the resources of physical resources. It is using as in, it is relying on employees, right? So it is important that along with taxes, yes, I know taxes are onerous, but there it is the government which is spending. Here, so like I said, that we should stop thinking of companies as just companies. Think of them as responsible citizens, right? And when you think of it that way, it is important that giving back to society should not be considered onerous. If you think about it that way, that how are you, it is not like in vacuum you are generating profits. Based on society only, your customers are the society, right? Or even generation of work is being done by society only, that is your employees. So from that perspective, once we are able to change our viewpoint, which is what I was trying to say, that this philosophy, keep it in mind. When you keep that in mind, automatically these provisions will stop seeming onerous. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, Sagar, you can ask your question.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Sir, first of all, thank you, sir, for such informative session.
Thank you.
Sir, my question is that what are your views of repercussions or effect of legally mandating CSR?
So see, like I said, that India in that sense is the first country to do so. Uh, I'm not sure, like I said, that when something is required to be done compulsorily, maybe it becomes more onerous. But see, the way I see it, like I said, that in this day and age of social media. So suppose, like I gave that example of Infosys, that suppose Infosys, even if there was no law, okay, but if Infosys got to know that this engaging in CSR activity is also going to help me with my brand image, then probably this would have happened anyway. So it is not, it is something that is going to happen. This ESG reporting which is there, I mean, it is going to come up. Or I would also like to tell you that recently in the US, there is this conference of business leaders. All the top company executives meet, and they decide, what is going to be our policy. So, in a way, for the first time in 2021, they came up with a policy. So, the policy would always be that we have to do things for the benefit of our shareholders, that is the owners only, right? For the first time, they have now changed that philosophy, that it is not only for the owners, but it is also for the welfare of our employees and the community at large. So even in the US, where you don't have a specific law, this mindset change is happening, right? And like I said, that in terms this day and age where there is so much social media backlash that can happen, or you can literally build a brand over social media. There is so much user engagement, that change will happen. And even like I said, if you think about it, now suppose you are going to buy brand clothes from brand A or brand B. Brand A, is okay, cheaper, but it is made on, come from China, for example. It's come from China, where certain bonded labor, in a way, or on account of forced labor, that that shirt was manufactured. And on the other hand, that okay, this XYZ company, it is a more expensive shirt, but they have not specifically decided not to take cotton from that area. And in fact, they've tried to come up with some sort of maybe recyclable material, like from recycled clothes they've come up with this shirt, for example. So then you in your head are also going to feel that okay, maybe I'll go with the second company, because at least it may be a little expensive, but at least they are doing good work. So that is what I feel, that even if it was not the law, companies were anyway going to shift to take this approach. So I mean, and having a law, again, at least it gives some uniformity to that approach, that okay, at least spend 2%. And yeah, I think that is the case, that even if the law was not there, probably that mindset would have changed in the fight.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
So next question is from Sony. You can unmute yourself and ask the question.
Good morning, sir.
Good one.
So, sir, this question is like I had a confusion. So, for example, of a MNC who like produces a tons of plastic every day, like waste. So, is it like if we companies plans to set up a suppose a recycling plant
Mm-hmm.
for the management of plastic waste? So, will that be considered as CSR?
So see, it depends. So suppose like we take the example of plastic. Okay. Now the thing is that if it is a plastic manufacturing company, right? Now it has certain recycled plastic. It recycles the plastic and uses it for its own manufacturing. So then in that case, it is finally getting you profits, right? It becomes a normal business activity. But suppose you have another company which is so suppose clothes, right? So now clothes are also required to be recycled, or so basically if it is not directly related to your profits, or it is not directly related to your business, then it will be considered to be CS. So just to take an example, suppose now Infosys, right? Infosys says that okay, whatever, suppose like people get lunch or whatever is the waste material, that I will engage in composting activity and ensure that it is turned into manure. Now this is not a direct business activity for Infosys, right? So if that is done by Infosys, then it would be considered to be a CSR activity. That okay, you're doing something for the environment. But if it is, suppose it's a manufacturer who is actually in the business of making compost waste, for example, then it is your normal business. So it will depend on the facts. Okay, what is the actual business activity and what is the CSR activity you're conducting. But like I said, that even if it's a manufacturer and he's doing this activity, it may not fall under CSR as per the law, but it, like I said, that with respect to brand image, it would definitely help that person, that company. That if they say that whatever is our waste, we recycle it and use it back, then from a branding perspective, in the eyes of your customers or in the eyes of your own employees, it is definitely going to help you. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yes, the next question is from Mihir. Mihir, you can unmute yourself and ask the question.
Yes. Good morning, sir.
Yes, good morning.
The question that I want to ask you is that do you think that providing financial literacy to its employees can be the best CSR activity which a company can do?
So see, again, like I said, that if something is purely for the benefit of employees under the law, under Indian law, it will not be considered to be CSR. So suppose you start you spend money on classes for financial literacy for employees only, then it is not CSR under our law. If you have CSR literacy classes for the underprivileged, then in that case it would be considered to be CSR. But like I said, that not everything, like the guiding approach can't be only compliance with the law. So I agree with your viewpoint that even financial, and in fact in this day and age, I mean, from like, just to give an example, when we speak of politics in the US, their campaign is about the economy. Somehow in India, while we do speak of development, there is not so much discussion about the nature of the economy, the state of the economy, what are good investment avenues. So from that perspective, I agree with you that it is a good form of CSR, because financial literacy unfortunately is highly lacking in our population. But like I said, from a law perspective, it will not be considered to be a CSR expenditure under your company's act. But from a CSR policy or philosophy, or you can say from an ESG perspective, right, where I discussed that employee well-being is also important. So from that ESG perspective, it is definitely a good idea to do. Yeah, I hope that answers you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So there are no more hand raises. If
Right.
anyone has questions, they can raise their hands. Okay. I don't see any raised hands, sir.
Okay.
I request Shruti Jain to present vote of thanks.
Thank you, Apurva. It's my immense pleasure to present a vote of thanks. I, Shruti Jain, on behalf of Deccan Education Society, IMDR, would like to thank you, sir, for giving us time and inspiring us on Corporate Social Responsibility Bill, a Companies Act perspective. Sir, your thoughts and experiences have really inspired us. As you mentioned in your talk, philosophy of CSR, what are the responsibility of CSR committee, board of directors, threshold for applicability of provisions, then how to implement on CSR activities, then why CSR is important, significance, amendments, factors of determining CSR activities and benefits of planning, and then ESG guidelines. So this piece of information is really helpful for us in our future endeavor. Thank you so much, sir, for. Then I would also like to thank our director, faculty, non-teaching staff for continuously encouraging and supporting us for such a corporate connect. I thank the entire student organizing team, technical support, and last but not the least, I thank all my student colleagues without whom the session wouldn't have been successful. Thank you.
Thank you all for being patient listeners, and I hope you found the session useful. Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much.
So I'll just log out.
Yeah, we'll end the meeting here. Thank you so much, Kunal sir.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you.